evening. You're listening to Chesterton Radio, broadcasting from Atchison, Kansas.
And we are so glad you're tuning in tonight.
I want you to really picture something with me for a second. It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, the absolute worst time to be awake.
Right, exactly. The house is completely silent except for maybe the relentless rhythmic ticking of a clock somewhere down the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Outside, the streets are slick with rain. You can see the amber glow of the streetlights just kind of reflecting off the pavement. And you're lying there awake, staring at the ceiling, and you feel it.
That weight.
Yes, that heavy, suffocating weight of regret just pressing right down on your chest. I mean, we have all been there. It is this completely universal midnight fantasy of the second chance.
It really is. It's the oldest bargaining chip of the human condition.
Exactly. You replay a moment in your head, a mistake, maybe a harsh word, or a really terrible financial decision, and you think, if only I could go back.
Right. If I just had the script.
Yeah. If I could just have yesterday back, I would do it all differently. I'd fix it.
We're so convinced that our suffering is just a product of bad timing. Like, if we just had the information beforehand, we could rewrite the ending so we win.
But I want to ask you something, and I want you to really, really think about this as you listen today. If you were given yesterday back, would you actually escape tomorrow?
Man, that is the terrifying question at the heart of our deep dive tonight.
It really is.
Because we are excavating a truly haunting piece of audio history. This is from January 31st, 1974, a broadcast of the legendary CBS Radio Mystery Theater titled The Man Who Asked for Yesterday.
Written by Ian Martin and hosted by the iconic E.G. Marshall.
Right. And we are not just doing some, nostalgic review of an old magnetic tape here.
No. We are looking at this as a modern moral fable. Because to understand this story, you have to look past the supernatural plot and really examine the psychology of the protagonist, Mort Herman.
Absolutely. And to understand Mort, we can't start at the beginning of his incredibly bad day. We actually have to start at the end.
Right. We have to start in the hospital.
Yeah, let's set that scene because the original broadcast just drops you immediately into this visceral chaos.
It's jarring. E.G. Marshall's authoritative voice just fades right into the frantic sounds of paramedics and police.
Mm-hmm.
Mort Herman is being rushed down a hospital corridor on a gurney, and he has a bullet lodged deep in his brain.
Which is just a horrific image.
Totally. And the police sergeant is standing right over him, basically hoping this dying man mutters the name of his killer, while the doctor is frantically prepping him for immediate surgery.
Wait, I want to pause right there, because the doctor specifically says he is prepping him for surgery.
Yeah.
Is Mort actually dying at this exact second?
We'll hold that thought, because that specific medical detail, whether he's actually dying, is the absolute linchpin that changes the entire universe of this story later on.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll bookmark that.
But in this moment, Mort certainly believes he is dead. I mean, he isn't talking to the doctor. He isn't talking to the police.
Right. He's murmuring to this mysterious, unseen presence in the room. Yes. And the crazy part is, he isn't begging for his life.
No, he's begging for a do-over.
Exactly. He's begging for a chance to replay the hand that fate just dealt him. He literally complains, and this is the quote, "I never had a chance. The cards were all stacked against me."
The ultimate victim complex.
Totally.
He says, if I could just have yesterday to live over, and this unseen entity, which, by the way, is just chilling in its calmness.
Oh, the voice acting is incredible.
It asks him why. Why do you want yesterday back? And Mort's response is so telling about his entire worldview.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say, I want to make amends, or I want to tell my wife I love her. He says, what have I got to lose?
Right. Which brings us to the core concept here, the illusion of the second chance. The entity asks if Mort could actually do better. And
Mort is just supremely arrogant about it.
Supremely. With the arrogance of a man who has learned absolutely nothing, he insists he naturally would do better, simply because he now has the facts.
He genuinely thinks his failure was an information deficit, not, a character deficit.
Exactly. And the entity delivers one of the most chilling lines in radio history. It says, well, why not? I'm a bit of a gambler myself. Let's see how you can remake yesterday.
Just give you goosebumps.
Seriously.
So Mort wakes up. The supernatural reset happens, the alarm clock rings, his wife Sherry complains about him tossing and turning, and it is the exact same morning of the day he gets a bullet in his brain.
But we really need to look at the yesterday. Mort is so desperate to fix. Because the reality of his life is just bleak.
Yeah, it's not a glamorous life. Mort is a severe gambling addict.
And the script does not romanticize this for a second.
Not at all. He wakes up and immediately describes his own physical and spiritual decay. He mentions a furry tongue, a tight pull behind his eyes, and this he calls it a shivery feeling of insecurity.
Which is such an accurate description of waking up with severe anxiety.
Yeah.
But we really need to anchor this to the reality of 1974 because Mort's desperation isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right. Context matters so much here.
It does. January 1974 is the height of American stagflation. The economy is basically grinding to a halt. Inflation is skyrocketing.
People were waiting in lines around the block literally just to buy a gallon of gas.
Exactly. And the news digests, playing between the acts of this very broadcast, feature warnings about home heating oil shortages, and they play clips of President Nixon's energy crisis speeches.
That makes so much sense. So when Mort is sweating over his debts, it's not just the standard trope of a guy owing a shady bookie. Money in 1974 was tight for everyone.
The collective anxiety of the nation was incredibly high.
Yeah, people felt like the system was completely rigged, that their dollars were losing value by the minute, everyone was looking for a way out. So Mort's supernatural trap feels terrifyingly plausible because the real world around him already felt like an economic trap.
Precisely. The historical context really elevates his individual pathology. He's a man who feels he has no control, so he seeks it in the absolute worst possible place, the racetrack.
Right. Let's look at the mechanics of this addiction, because he owes massive debts to his bookie, Herb.
Huge debts.
And he works for his Uncle Joe in the diamond business, but he bitterly resents it. He doesn't view his uncle as an employer or even as family. He just views him as this adversary hoarding wealth that Mort thinks he deserves.
It's a total lack of accountability. He sees Uncle Joe's safe as basically a bank waiting to be robbed.
Yeah. And then there's Sherry, his wife.
Oh, Sherry.
On the surface, if you just tune in, she seems like the supportive spouse. She brings him coffee. She listens to him agonize over his lack of cash.
But let's break down what she's actually doing.
Yeah, please do.
So, Mort tells her that the favorite horse at the track hasn't won in 15 days. And he says that by the law of averages, that horse absolutely must win today.
Ah, yes. The classic gambler's fallacy.
Exactly. And we need to define this clearly because it is the engine of Mort's destruction. The gambler's fallacy isn't just bad math.
Right.
It's a psychological glitch where the human brain incorrectly believes that past independent events affect future probabilities. Mort genuinely thinks losing 15 times makes him mathematically due for a win.
You see this today all the time. I mean, think about the person listening right now who holds on to a crashing stock or some crypto coin thinking, it's been down for a month, it has to bounce back tomorrow.
Right. But the universe doesn't owe you a bounce back.
Exactly. The roulette wheel has no memory. The horse doesn't know it lost the last 15 races.
Yes. And Sherry, rather than intervening, rather than being a good spouse and stopping this, she weaponizes this psychological glitch.
She does. Instead of telling him to get help, she actively pushes him over the edge.
She validates his delusion. She tells him about a friend who used a Ouija board to predict a winning bet. I mean, come on.
A Ouija board.
Right. And she encourages him to place a massive bet without any cash to back it up. She literally tells him to just write a bad check to Herb, his bookie.
And the moment he steps into the shower, the true dynamic is revealed.
This scene is so cold.
It is.
Huh.
Sherry picks up the phone. She calls Herb. They are lovers. And they discuss Mort not as a human being, not as a husband, but as a pigeon that they finally have cornered. They are actively conspiring to ruin him.
Let's dissect the mechanics of their trap, too, because it's pure psychological warfare.
Okay, walk me through it.
So, Mort writes a bum check for $1,000, but Herb and Sherry don't just take the bad check and extort him with that.
Right.
Herb calls Mort back and pretends to be doing him a favor. He tells Mort the race is fixed. He says a 100-to-1 long shot named Tidy Lady is a guaranteed win, and he convinces Mort to write another bad check, up to $2,500.
See, I don't get that part. If they already have him on the hook for a $1,000 bad check, why bother with the fake tip on the terrible horse? Why the extra step?
Because $1,000 might just get Mort a beating from the mob, but $2,500 in 1974 money.
Oh, wow. Yeah, with inflation, that's huge.
Yeah. That's enough to ensure Mort has absolutely no earthly way of paying it back through normal means. They know Tidy Lady is a terrible horse. By feeding Mort this false insider tip, they guarantee a catastrophic loss that places him entirely irrevocably in Herb's power.
Man.
They need him desperate enough to commit a major felony.
And it works perfectly. Tidy Lady loses, obviously. Herb shows up at the door, drops the friendly facade completely, and pulls a gun.
Right in his living room.
Yeah. He tells Mort the hard cases upstairs will kill them both if the money isn't produced. He gives Mort this totally manufactured ultimatum: open your Uncle Joe's diamond safe or die.
And Mort, stripped of all agency by his own choices, complies.
He does. He opens the safe, and Herb takes $50,000 in loose diamonds.
Now notice how the geography of the trap shifts here. This is crucial.
Right, because Herb tells Mort he bought 2 plane tickets to South America for Mort and Sherry.
He tells Mort to pack a bag. Mort gets in the car with Sherry, actually believing Herb is driving them to the airport.
He's so gullible.
But Herb veers off the highway. He claims they need gas, but he drives down a dead-end dirt road that leads directly under a bridge to the river.
And Mort realizes the truth just way too late. He looks around and says the road is a dead end.
And Herb replies with that classic villain line,
Yeah.
"You are so right, Mort, particularly for you."
It's so grim. The tickets were never for Mort. They were for Herb and Sherry. And Sherry is sitting right there in the passenger seat.
Yeah, she confirms it. And she coldly complains that she didn't want to carry Mort's gun around in her purse anymore.
Just zero empathy. So Herb orders Mort to help push the car into the river to stage an accident. Mort is begging for his life. Herb literally waits for the roar of an airplane passing overhead to mask the sound and shoots Mort in the head.
And the car rolls into the water.
Which brings us right back to the hospital, the supernatural entity, and the reset. Mort wakes up, he's back in his bed, the alarm clock is ringing, and he has the cheat codes to the universe.
Exactly. He knows his wife is sleeping with his bookie. He knows they're going to murder him.
This introduces the central paradox of our deep dive: tactical advantage versus moral transformation.
Foreknowledge is power, but how does the protagonist actually wield it?
And this is what drives me crazy. If I know my bookie is going to shoot me under a bridge and I have a literal time machine, why on earth would I stick around?
Right. Why not just leave?
Why not just take whatever cash I have in my wallet, get on a Greyhound bus, and move to Ohio? Or better yet, go to the police right then and there. Is Mort just stupid?
It looks like stupidity, but we are actually witnessing the pathology of addiction in its purest form.
How so?
Mort isn't trying to survive. He's trying to win.
Oh, wow.
When the entity gave him a second chance, it wasn't like giving him a blank slate. It was like pulling back the plunger on a kinball machine. The ball is still going to bounce through the exact same chaotic maze of his life, but now, armed with foreknowledge, it has 10 times the destructive kinetic energy.
That is a phenomenal way to put it. The kinetic energy of his addiction.
Yes.
He takes that energy and goes straight on the offensive. He decides he's going to turn the trap around on them. When he calls Herb to place the bet, he doesn't just avoid the trap. He actively escalates the stakes.
He demands to bet $10,000 on the fake tip, Tidy Lady.
$10,000. He is baiting the hook for Herb, forcing his bookie into a massive obligation because he knows the horse will lose, but he wants to create chaos.
And then Mort goes to his uncle's safe.
Right. And instead of just taking the $50,000 Herb would have originally demanded to cover the fake debt, Mort wipes the safe completely clean.
He steals nearly $1 million in diamonds.
$1 million. And he justifies it to himself by mocking his uncle. He really leans into his perpetual victimhood to excuse grand larceny.
Oh, absolutely. The internal monologue is all about how he deserves it.
So he stuffs $1 million into his pockets, drops the bad check off with Herb, and goes home to wait for Sherry. And the confrontation with Sherry in the second timeline is fascinating.
It's a total role reversal.
It is. Let's really look at the mechanics of her character here, because in the first timeline, she was this terrifying, icy femme fatale. She mocked him while he was looking down the barrel of a gun.
She was completely in control.
But now, Mort holds the gun. He systematically tears down all her lies. He tells her he knows about the fixed race, about Herb, about the murder plot.
And how does she react?
She completely disintegrates. I mean, she goes from a calculating villain to a pathetic, groveling mess. She begs, she cries, she literally says, "I'm Sherry, your wife, someone who'd do anything for you."
Which is so hypocritical. But we really have to ask why she falls apart so completely. Is it simply cowardice, or is it something deeper about manipulative personality?
I think it's deeper.
I do too. Sherry's primary weapon is deception. The moment foreknowledge strips her of that weapon, she has no actual strength. She's hollow.
Totally hollow. But we also have to ask, does her pathetic, fearful end in the second timeline erase her villainy in the first timeline?
That's a great question. What do you think?
Absolutely not. I think it just exposes her. She's tough when she's holding the cards, but the moment she's outplayed, she resorts to emotional manipulation.
Exactly.
But Mort is immune to it now because he's already watched her murder him.
He remembers the coldness in her eyes.
Yes. So he forces her into the car, makes her drive to the exact same dead-end road under the bridge, tells her a coffin is a coffin, and he shoots her.
He executes her.
He pushes the car into the river and walks away with $1 million, declaring himself free. He really thinks he won the game.
He believes he has rewritten his fate. He's rich, his betrayer is dead, and he's walking away.
Right.
But this is where the universe, the story, that strange creaking door philosophy of 1970s radio drama, closes its fist.
I love that phrase, the creaking door philosophy.
It's that idea that the universe does not allow you to cheat the moral ledger. The house always wins.
The claustrophobia of this next sequence is just incredible. Mort tries to flee. He goes to the airport to catch a flight to South America, right? But an announcement comes over the PA system. All flights are grounded due to a severe smog inversion. No planes are taking off.
And again, listen to how the real-world anxieties of 1974 are woven into the supernatural horror.
Right, the smog.
Smog inversions and severe pollution were massive news stories in the early 70s. It led directly to the creation of the EPA. The very environment of the city is literally turning against him.
So panic sets in. I mean, he's carrying $1 million in stolen diamonds, he just murdered his wife, and his bookie is actively hunting him because Mort intentionally placed a $10,000 bet he knew he couldn't cover.
He's a walking target.
He tries to get a cab to another city, but the cabbie refuses. So they try the train station, but there's a massive traffic jam. A cop tells them there's a fire in the tunnel, no trains are leaving.
Every avenue of escape is systematically severed by these completely mundane yet insurmountable obstacles.
It's like a nightmare.
Mort asks to go to the bus station. The cop laughs and says the bus drivers just went on strike that weekend.
Another deeply resonant 1970s labor crisis detail.
Exactly. The strikes were everywhere.
Mort describes it as the kind of bad dream where you have to escape, but your feet are buried in mud. The cab driver just gets fed up, says Mort's $50 is used up, and kicks him out of the car.
And where does he drop him?
Right in front of his own house, the exact place he was trying to flee. And standing on the porch, waiting in the shadows, is Herb.
It's inevitable. Let's analyze Herb's role in this ecosystem, because it's fascinating. Is Herb merely a corrupt bookie, or does he operate as an almost elemental force here?
Honestly, he feels like the Grim Reaper.
He really does.
He is the cosmic auditor. In both timelines, Herb is the enforcer of the universe's grim accounting. Herb realizes something is wrong. He couldn't reach Sherry, he smells the freshly fired gunpowder on Mort's gun, and he deduces that Mort figured out the plot.
He puts it all together instantly.
So Herb forces Mort into his own car, drives him to the exact same bridge, strips him of the diamonds, and shoots him.
Which brings Mort right back to the dying moments on the hospital bed talking to the supernatural entity. The time loop is complete.
Wow.
And this forces us to confront the deepest philosophical question of our deep dive. Is fate fixed, or do we simply carry ourselves back into the same ending?
This is where it gets incredibly profound, because Mort didn't just fail. He failed because the universe of this story demands a moral toll. The universe didn't force Mort to go to that bridge the second time.
No, it didn't.
He made a series of highly specific, aggressive choices that paradoxically led him to the exact same executioner.
Let's actually map the causality here, because it's brilliant writing. Why did he end up at his house where Herb was waiting?
Because he was trying to flee the city in a panic.
Right. And why was he in a panic?
Because he had $1 million in stolen diamonds and a murdered wife in the river.
Exactly. And why did he have $1 million and a dead wife? Because he chose to use his foreknowledge to steal and murder, rather than to avoid the trap entirely.
If he had just, stayed home that morning and called the police or just taken his $50 and got on a bus before the strike even happened, he would have lived.
Precisely. And this highlights a deeply Chestertonian theme running through the entire broadcast.
Let's talk about that.
When we say something has a Chestertonian edge, we are referring to the philosophy of G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah.
He often centered his writing on the idea that human nature is fundamentally flawed. It's the concept of original sin.
Right.
Chesterton argued that changing a man's external circumstances, or his political system, or in this case, his knowledge of the future, will not fix him if his internal moral compass is broken.
Yes, that is exactly what happens here. Mort's greed, his vindictiveness, his fundamental lack of empathy, these were his defining traits.
They were who he was.
Yeah. When the supernatural entity removed his victimhood and gave him the advantage, it didn't cure his pathology. It merely allowed his darker nature to flourish without any restriction. It proved that his problem wasn't that he was unlucky. His problem was that he was fundamentally corrupt.
As the saying goes, a man does not need more time. He needs a new soul.
A new soul. Wow.
Time, in this broadcast, is not used as an opportunity for redemption. It is used as a mechanism for pure, terrifying judgment.
Which completely changes how we view that supernatural entity in the hospital room. When the voice says, "I'm a bit of a gambler myself," it isn't an angel giving him a blessing.
Far from it.
It is calling Mort's bluff. Mort claimed that if he had another chance, he would do better. The entity basically says, "I bet you won't. I bet you'll prove exactly why you deserve to die."
And Mort proves it spectacularly.
It really does.
Which brings us to the staggering twist at the very end of the script. A revelation that completely recontextualizes everything we have just discussed.
This part made my jaw drop when I heard it. As Mort is dying on the operating table in the second timeline, the entity reveals to him what actually happened in the first timeline.
It is so tragic.
When Herb pushed the car into the river the first time, with Mort bleeding in the back seat, Mort didn't die.
Right. The entity explains that the car door wasn't closed completely. The water pressure forced it open. Mort, despite having a bullet in his head, managed to surface and float on the tide to the riverbank.
And that's where the police sergeant found him and brought him to the hospital. He survived the execution.
That you did.
Wait a second, though. If the doctor in the first timeline was prepping him for surgery, and he survived the river, does that mean the supernatural entity lied to him when it offered him a do-over?
No. Think about it carefully. The entity never said he was dying. Mort assumed he was dying.
Oh my gosh.
The entity just asked if he wanted to try again. The entity explicitly tells Mort at the very end, "You would have lived."
He literally asked for yesterday, and by doing so, erased his own tomorrow. If he had just accepted his fate in the hospital bed, he would have survived the surgery, Herb and Sherry would likely have been caught, and he would have had a chance to actually rebuild his life.
But he could not accept the grace of surviving his own terrible choices. He demanded the power to control fate itself.
And it backfired.
Completely. In the second timeline, Herb didn't put him in a car to stage an accident. Herb shot him and kicked him directly off the pier into the deep water. There was no floating to the bank.
By demanding the do-over, he sealed his own doom. He added the murder of his wife to his soul, and he died permanently. The entity claims him, saying, "Tomorrow I'll take care of all your tomorrows."
It is the ultimate punishment for hubris.
It is, and this forces us to turn the lens outward. I want to ask you, the listener, as you hear this, if that mysterious voice spoke to you from the shadows of your room, offering to rewind the clock 24 hours, what would you do?
It's a tough question.
Would you actually right a wrong, apologize, try to be a better person? Or would you, deep down, just use the knowledge to ensure you came out on top?
It's deeply uncomfortable to think about. I mean, think about your own life right now. Think about the person who believes, if I just had a different boss, I wouldn't be so angry all the time.
Yeah, we all do that. We blame the external.
Mort proves that if you take an angry person and change their circumstances, they'll just find a new reason to be furious.
It leads to a dark speculation, honestly. Can anyone actually escape their nature? If Mort had chosen to simply walk away, could he have broken the loop? Or are we, as human beings, just doomed to repeat our basest instincts when the pressure is applied?
See, I wonder about that.
I have to push back on that fatalism, though. It's too bleak for me. Surely the very fact that the entity offered the chance means that redemption is possible, right? If it's a guaranteed failure no matter what, then the whole exercise is just a rigged carnival game designed by a cruel universe.
But perhaps a rigged game is exactly what a gambling addict deserves.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah.
But true.
Mort spent his entire life looking for the sure thing, the rigged race, the insider tip. He wanted to cheat the system. So the universe gave him the ultimate cheat code, knowing full well that a man addicted to cheating will inevitably cheat himself out of salvation.
Wow.
The offer of redemption was genuine, but his failure was entirely predictable because he hadn't changed his fundamental values.
Man, that is heavy. But it perfectly encapsulates the tradition of the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. This isn't just a standard thriller, it belongs to a very specific lineage of storytelling.
Stretching back to classic shows like Suspense or The Whistler.
Right. It is the embodiment of what we called earlier the creaking door philosophy.
Yes. When you enter this specific auditory world, you are stepping into a space where justice is strange, it's poetic, and it's absolutely inescapable.
The innocent might suffer temporarily, but the guilty will always meet a fitting end.
The universe always balances its books.
And we see that exact cosmic accounting fulfilled in this brilliant throwaway detail right at the end of the broadcast.
I love this part.
The police sergeant is talking to the doctor after Mort finally dies on the operating table in the second timeline. And the sergeant is complaining about a new headache he has to deal with. He says there was a massive accident near the bridge by the docks. A guy driving up from the pier got completely crushed by a trailer truck. Killed instantly.
And what was scattered all over the road?
Hundreds of stolen diamonds. It was Herb.
Her?
Herb killed Mort, took the $1 million in diamonds, drove away thinking he had won, and immediately got obliterated by a semi-truck.
Herb doesn't get away with it either.
The cosmic auditor gets audited.
It is the final, satisfying click of the cosmic machinery. No one escapes their moral debt. This entire broadcast serves as a mirror. We all want to turn the clock back when the present feels unmanageable.
Especially in times of intense societal anxiety like 1974 or even today.
Which brings us to the ticking clock of E.G. Marshall's closing thoughts. As the episode winds down, we're left with the resonance of his voice, delivering a final philosophical blow.
Marshall recalls an often misquoted line of poetry by Elizabeth Akers Allen.
Right. He notes that people often say, "Backward, turn backward, O time, in thy flight." But the actual quote is, "Backward, turn backward, O time, in your flight."
And he dismisses the grammatical correction, noting that the only word that truly matters is the first one.
Backward.
Yes, to turn time backward is man's oldest dream.
But as Mort Herman proves so tragically, it is an idle and deeply dangerous dream. Because in the end, if our hearts remain unchanged, we simply carry ourselves back into the exact same ruin.
We started this deep dive by asking a question. If you were given yesterday back, would you actually escape tomorrow?
Mort Herman thought he could.
He thought he could outrun his destiny by simply changing his tactics. He thought that knowing the trap was enough to dismantle it.
But he forgot that he was the one who built the trap in the first place.
Out of his own greed, his own lies, and his own refusal to take responsibility for his life. He didn't just walk back into the snare, he actively dove into it.
It leaves us with a profound sense of unease, because it forces us to look not at the unfairness of our circumstances, but at the reality of our own character.
It really does. As you lie awake tonight, listening to the rain, feeling the weight of the things you wish you could undo, consider the lesson of the man who asked for yesterday. Perhaps the most terrifying thing is not that we cannot change yesterday, but that, given the chance, we might not.
Until next time, pleasant dreams.